Hello students, let's do part 2 of the chapter Inside the Earth. In my previous video, we had done part 1. We did the 3 layers of the earth: crust, mantle and core. In part 2 of this chapter, we will be doing the materials of the earth crust: rock, minerals and ores. So let's move to what is a rock, what is a mineral and what is an ore. Right. So what is a rock? In a very simple language, rock is a solid material that makes up the earth crust. So all solid materials of the earth crust, whether hard or soft, that make up the earth's crust are called as rocks. Rocks may be of different composition, different sizes, texture and colors. Now, generally, rocks are solid masses, but they may also include loose materials like sand and silt. They are made up of one or more minerals. Rocks are made up of one or more minerals. That means minerals are the substances found in the rocks, and the rocks do not have a definite chemical composition. Right? So understood, rock is a solid material that make up the earth crust. They have different compositions, sizes, texture, colors. They are generally solid masses, but they may also include loose material like sand and silt. They are made up of one or more minerals, and they do not have a definite chemical composition. So what are minerals? Now, as I told you in my previous slide, minerals are the substances which occur in rocks. Now, minerals have a definite chemical composition. Each mineral contains two or more simple substances called as elements. They provide us metals and chemicals. They are non-living solid substances. So let me just take out my pointer to make you explain things more nicely. So we have done the rocks, right? We did the rocks. Rock is a solid material that make up the earth's surface. Then we did mineral. Mineral are the substances which are found in rocks. Right, then we will be doing the elements. Now, minerals are made up of minerals contain two or more simpler substances known as your elements. Right, so let's move on to the next slide. Right, now what is an ore? A rock in which a particular mineral is found in a large percentage is called as an ore. So many of you might wonder, what is an ore? See, honestly, ore is a mineral which has been found in a rock, or is a rock in which a particular mineral is found. And this mineral can be extracted from the rock and is economically profitable and economically feasible. For example, now the ore of aluminium, that means from where you can take out aluminium, that rock is known as basalt. The ore of zinc is zinc blende. The ore of copper is copper pyrite. So these are all the rocks in which these minerals can be extracted. And extraction is done only if it is feasible. Number two, it is economically profitable, viable. That means only if it is useful to extract that mineral from that rock. Now, see, the minerals, there are two type of minerals. Let me take out my pointer. Now, one is called as your metallic minerals, minerals, and the other are your non-metallic metals, right? Minerals. So, what are the metallic one? Now, the metallic minerals, metallic means they have luster like a metal. They are found in igneous and metamorphic rocks. Example, iron, gold, silver, lead, zinc and copper. So these are metallic minerals, minerals which have shine, and they are found in the igneous and the metamorphic rocks. Now, non-metallic minerals. Now, non-metallic minerals do not have a shine like metal, and they are normally associated with the sedimentary rocks. Now, what are the example of non-metallic? Clay, sulfur, coal, petroleum, and salt. So, is that clear to you? Metallic have a metallic finish. Minerals, they are found in igneous and metamorphic. Example is gold, silver, lead, zinc, and copper. Non-metallic do not have that luster, shine like a metal, and they are normally associated with the sedimentary rocks. Example, clay, sulfur, coal, petroleum, and salt. Now let's have a look at a metallic rock. This is which has a luster like a metal. So non-metallic rocks. So these are the examples of your non-metallic. Okay. Now, as I explained to you before, the what is an ore? I told you that it's a rock. Now, this is an ore, which means it's a rock that contains the metal. Now, this rock is an ore of gold. That means this metal contains gold in it and it can be mined profitably. Iron ore and a copper ore. So ore is nothing but a mineral found in the rock which can be mined profitably. Right. Now, the most important part of the chapter is, of course, that on the basis of their formation, how the rocks are formed, they are divided into three broad categories. One, igneous rocks. Let me just underline that for you. One, the igneous rocks. Number two, sedimentary rocks. And number three, metamorphic rocks. So, more or less, your questions are asked on these type of rocks. There are true and false, they are fill in the blanks. There could be some long questions as well. So let's understand these rocks one by one. First are your igneous rocks. Now, what does the term igneous mean? Now, the term igneous is derived from a Latin word ignis, which means fire. So, how are these rocks formed? See, these rocks are also called as the primary rocks. Why? Because it is, if we'll talk about the rock cycle also. So the rocks that come into existence is the igneous rock. So they are the primary rocks. Now, how are these rocks formed? They are formed by cooling of the molten magma inside the earth crust or on the earth surface. But this process may take thousands of years. It is not like that the igneous rock can be just made in a day or so. It takes lot many years to make these rocks. So if I say it in a very simple language, that these rocks are made from the molten magma. This magma may cool down inside the earth. This magma may cool down on the earth, and when it solidifies, that forms igneous rocks. So igneous rocks are of two types. Extrusive igneous rocks, let me just underline that for you. So they are extrusive igneous rocks and intrusive igneous rocks. I think I would like to have something like a pen to make it a little more easier. Right, so this is understood. Now let's come here. Now, what are your intrusive igneous rocks? Now, if you see the word extrusive means outside. So when the molten lava comes on the earth surface and cools down rapidly on the crust, that means the molten magma, when it comes on the earth surface and it is cooling on the earth surface, the kind of rocks it forms, we give it a term as the extrusive igneous rocks. Now, such rocks will have very fine grain structures. Why? Because when it is on the earth's surface, it rapidly cool down, so it doesn't form too many large grains on their structure. The other one is your intrusive. Now, as the name says, it means inside. Inside, that means when the molten magma cools down deep inside the earth crust. Now, here the molten magma is not cooling outside the earth, it is cooling inside the earth. So it forms intrusive igneous rocks. Now, because it is inside, so it takes the cooling process is very slow. It takes lot of time. So that is why the rocks so formed have large grains. So extrusive rocks which are formed when the molten lava or magma cools down on the earth's surface have very fine grains, whereas when it cools down inside, that is intrusive, the grains are too big. Right. So what are the features, the characteristics? One, the igneous rocks are hard and compact. So they are very hard and they are very compact. They are impervious rocks and they do not contain any remains of animals or plants. They are also termed as the primary rocks. So which are the primary rocks? Igneous rocks, as other type of rocks are formed from these rocks. So what are the example of these rocks? Like basalt, granite, and dolerite. Okay, let's have a look at these things. Now, these are your intrusive. I told you intrusive means when they have the magma has solidified inside the Earth's surface, because igneous rocks are formed from the molten magma. Now, because the molten magma cools inside the Earth, so you will see the cooling process is very slow. So these rocks will have large grains on them. And the example of intrusive are granite, diorite, and gabbro. Now, extrusive is when the molten magma solidifies on the earth crust, right? Then these are the kind of rocks which are formed. Most important, time and again you talk about basalt. It is in your book. Now, this is the stone that we talk about. Basalt is the most common example given for the igneous rock, including your granite, right? So these are the examples of your igneous rocks. So whenever you do this slide, try to answer yourself, what are igneous rocks? Where has the word igneous come from? How are they formed? Type of igneous rocks and examples. Let's just move on very quickly. We'll do that. Igneous is derived from the Latin word ignis, which means fire. How are they formed? They are formed when the molten magma cools down. Now, if it cools down on the earth crust, it forms extrusive igneous rocks. If it cools down inside the earth, it forms intrusive igneous rocks. And because when extrusive igneous rocks, it cools on the earth's surface, so the cooling time is very less. Quickly it cools down, so the grain structures are very refined or fine. Whereas intrusive, the magma cools deep inside the earth, so it forms large grains because the cooling process is very slow. We did that they are hard and compact. They do not contain any fossils. They are termed as the primary rocks. We did the example basalt, granite, and dolerite. So granite, diorite, and gabbro are the examples of intrusive igneous rocks, and extrusive we have rhyolite, andesite, and your basalt. So you must try to answer this when you have seen the slide on the igneous rock. Now, the next rock is sedimentary rock. Now, the very word sedimentary means that the rocks which are formed from the sediments, the small elements or components. Now, the word sedimentary originates from the Latin word sedimenta. Sedimenta means to settle down. Now, these rocks are formed from the sediments. Now, what are sediments? Rocks are constantly broken and carried away by wind, water, ice, and then they get deposited where? Either on the seabed or on the land. So this you had done on your in your grade 6 about how these sediments are transported. We had done a very special topic on weathering. So this is how the sedimentary rocks are formed. They are formed when the rocks weather down. And which causes this weathering? The weathering is caused by wind, water, ice, and these rocks, they are constantly broken. And when these rocks are broken, they are called as sediments. So what happens to the sediments? Because sediment means small loose rocks here and there. So how do they come together to form the sedimentary rocks? These sediments are compressed, right? Then they are hardened, they are cemented together to form layers of rock called as the sedimentary rocks. So it's just similar to imagine having a cake which has lots of layers. So that is the kind of sedimentary rock. You will just see various layers cemented together. So what are the examples of sedimentary rock? There is sandstone and limestone. Now, can I ask you a question? What were the examples of the igneous rock? Basalt and granite, right? So we have done the sedimentary rocks. Let's do the next slide. Now, these sedimentary rocks are made up of various sizes and are deposited in the horizontal layers over one another. It's just like this, then on top of it like this, then like this. So all these layers are cemented together and they form the sedimentary rocks. Now, very important, sedimentary rock contains the fossils of the plant and animals. And these rocks constitute about 70% of the entire rocks found on the earth surface. Coal and petroleum are trapped in the layers of these rocks, right? Okay, now these are the examples of your sedimentary rocks. Normally, we have talked about the limestone. That is how it looks. This is sandstone. This is shale. Then this is rock salt, chert, conglomerate. So these are all these sedimentary rocks. Again, once you've seen these slides, try to answer what are sedimentary rocks, how are they formed, and give their examples. So very quickly, let's come. Now the word sedimentary comes from Latin word sedimenta, which means to settle down. These rocks are formed from the sediments, which are compressed, hardened, cemented to make the layers of rock called as sediments. Examples are sandstone and limestone. Now very importantly, the questions are asked that in which rocks do you find the fossils of plants and animals? Sedimentary. Now, which rocks are called as the primary rocks? That is igneous. 70% of the rocks, majority of the rocks are sedimentary. All right, so quickly, the third type of rock is the metamorphic rocks. Now, what are metamorphic rocks? A very simple explanation. Now, we've talked about the primary rocks, that is your igneous. They are formed from the molten magma. Then these rocks are broken into sediments. These sediments are together cemented and compressed and hardened. They form sedimentary rocks. But what will happen to these rocks when they are subject to excessive heat and pressure inside the earth? Now, these rocks also go a change. Now, the very word metamorphosis means a change, right? You must have done this word in your biology lesson when you do the caterpillar and butterfly. So, this is the morph means to change. So, metamorphic rocks are formed. Let me have my pointer here. Where is my pointer? Okay, so they are formed when igneous or the sedimentary rocks. Just a minute, if I could have my pointer options, and maybe we could have a little uh, darker pen, and then I can do that. All right, so metamorphic rocks are formed when igneous or sedimentary, yani कि both the rocks they change due to excessive heat and pressure inside the earth, and that completely changes their form and their characteristics. That means these new rocks are a complete change in the way they look, and even their features change. Now, the changes occur in their color, texture, hardness, mineral composition. Now, if you feel that metamorphic rocks just happen in a week or in a month, then you are wrong, because it takes about hundreds of years to make metamorphic rocks. So, what are the examples of these rocks? Like marble, there is slate, and genesis. They are the examples of the metamorphic rocks. So, quickly, what are the examples of the igneous rocks? Basalt and granite. Examples of sedimentary: sandstone, limestone. And the metamorphic is marble, slate, and genesis. Now, since I'm telling you that metamorphic rocks are formed from the igneous or the sedimentary rocks, that means if I say marble is a metamorphic rock, so which rock did it get transformed from? Limestone. Now, limestone is a sedimentary rock, but because of excessive heat and pressure inside the earth, it undergoes a change in its form and characteristic and later transforms into marble. The same way is a shale. Shale is a sedimentary rock. It also converts into a slate, which is a metamorphic rock, and has entirely different color, texture, hardness, and mineral composition. Granite. Now, I talked about granite. Granite is an igneous rock, and later, with the excessive heat and pressure, it changes its form, character, and now it becomes genesis, which is a metamorphic rock. So let's have a look at what we are talking. That is slate, marble, then genesis, quartzite, scarce, and serpentinite. These are all metamorphic rocks. And see how this metamorphic rocks are being made: shale, slate, then is your phyllite, scarce, and genesis. Now, what are the features of the metamorphic rocks? They are very hard but take a very long time in its formation, because we all know that metamorphic rocks were once upon a time igneous rocks. From igneous they changed into sedimentary, and now because of excessive heat and pressure they have changed in their features, their texture, their characteristics, and now they are known as metamorphic rocks. They are harder, very, very important. They are harder than any other rocks and have a specific gravity to them. Right, again, once you've done this slide, please go back to the slide, and if you can answer these questions, that what are metamorphic rocks, how are they formed, examples, that means you have understood. If you are unable to answer this, please go back to my slide and see that again. All right, a quick revision of all the rocks. Let me change my pointer to a much more different color. I'll choose a highlighter, but I will be choosing a different color. Okay, there's a yellow color here. Okay, now let's begin with this. Uh, All right, now this is your igneous rock, sedimentary rocks, and metamorphic rocks. Now, igneous rocks are also termed as primary rocks, as all other type of rocks are formed from these rocks. Igneous rocks are hard and compact, right? They are impervious rocks and they do not contain any remains of plants and animals. And one word for the remains of plant and animal is fossil. So igneous rocks do not contain any fossils. What are the examples of that? This is basalt, granite, and dolerite. Now let's come to sedimentary rocks. Sedimentary rocks, about 70% of the rocks found on the Earth's surface are sedimentary. They are made up of particles, the sediments of various sizes, and they are deposited. I explained it to you. It's just that the sediments, they just keep on getting deposited like this, and these are the layering, the horizontal layering, how the sedimentary rocks are formed. They are compressed now, as you see here, but later they will be compressed. They will be all together, although there will be lines in between how they are formed, but they will all be compressed, hardened, cemented, and then they form the sedimentary rocks. These rocks contain fossils of plants and animals between their layers or sediment. Now, coal and petroleum are trapped in these rocks. Coal and petroleum are trapped in the layers of these rocks. Then comes your metamorphic rocks. They are hard and they take very long time in their formation. They are harder than other rocks and have a high specific gravity. Example, quartzite and marble. Right? Let's move on to the rock cycle. Now, have you ever wondered that if I say that they are igneous, other primary rocks, all other rocks are formed from the igneous. So doesn't that mean that there's a rock cycle, right? That how one rock leads to another, and then it just goes on, right? So how do we start from here? We will start from here. Now, first, there is a molten magma here. Now, the rock formation starts from the molten magma. Now, the molten magma, it cools down, solidifies, it forms the igneous rocks, right? Igneous rocks. Now, the igneous rocks are broken, then they are transported, they are deposited, and in these layers, horizontal layers, which rocks are formed? Sedimentary rocks. Then, both the igneous and the sedimentary rocks change to metamorphic rocks due to extreme heat and pressure. Now, extreme heating. Now, it doesn't mean that after metamorphic rocks, the heat and pressure doesn't stop. That will go on. And the extreme heating, what will it do to the metamorphic rocks? It will again, extreme heat will again lead to melting of the rocks. Melting of the rocks will again lead to new magma. And it comes here again. Molten magma again cools down and solidifies. So, it is just like a rock cycle. It just keeps on going like this. Extreme heat will lead to melting of rocks, forming a new magma. This molten magma again cools down, solidifies into igneous rocks, and the entire process is called as the rock cycle. Let me explain you with a very easy diagram. Right, now let's start from here. there is a magma. If I could just use my, now this is magma. The magma comes out from the earth, and what it does, it form, it forms the igneous rocks, right? Then igneous rocks are broken into sediments, and all these sediments keep collecting, and then what do they form? They form the sedimentary rocks. Now, both the igneous and the sedimentary rocks have to undergo extreme heat and pressure. And what do they change into? Metamorphic rocks. Now, these extreme heat and pressure doesn't stop here. It keeps on going, and again the rocks would melt, and again the molten magma, and the cycle continues. There's another cycle I had made to make it all the more easier. There's a volcanic eruption. No, first there's a magma. Then magma comes out from the inside of the earth in the form of volcano. They form the igneous rocks. Igneous rocks are broken into sediments. Okay, let me just underline that for you. This is magma which comes out from the volcano. Then these, when the magma solidified, it forms the igneous rocks. Igneous rocks are broken, and then they form the sediments. From the sediments you have the sedimentary rocks. They go extreme heat and pressure. They again go the metamorphosis, or the metamorphic rocks are formed. Again this process continues, and this is known as the rock cycle. Now, what is the use of rocks? Now, rocks are used in the construction of roads and buildings. Then they are also storehouse of the fossil fuels like coal and petroleum. They can also ask you a question, name the two fossil fuels. They are coal and petroleum. Even the chemicals found in certain rocks are very rare, and they are useful for making the fertilizers. Then, now this line is very, very important. If you could understand this, although the greater details you'll do in your grade 8, but it is the type of the rock which will determine the soil and the drainage pattern of the area, right? So these are the usefulness of rocks. Now there are certain important terms given at the end of your book, so let me revise that with you. Crust, as I told you, that is the outermost layer of the earth. Mantle, that's a middle layer, mantle M, middle, lying between crust, the outer layer, and core, the inner layer. Core is the innermost layer of the earth. Rock, the solid material of the earth crust. Ore, it is a mineral which contains, rocks containing the minerals. Then is the rock cycle. It is a continuous process of transformation of rocks from one form to another. Now, this is the revision flow chart which has been given at the end of your book. So I think we have covered all this. We have covered the crust, we covered mantle, and we covered core in your part 1. Crust is the outermost layer of the earth. There is oceanic crust. I told you ocean ki seema. And then the continental crust, which is Sial. It is 8 to 35 kilometers thick, right? Then we did mantle. Mantle is the second layer. It is about 29 kilometers thick. It consists of three things: silica, then is your iron or magnesium, and your silica. Now is the core, which is the innermost layer of the earth. Let me come to this. Innermost layer of the earth. It is about 35 kilometers thick. It is called as neef. So you have Sema and Sial here. You have silica, magnesium, iron, and this is neef. Neef is iron and nickel. Now, rocks are made up of minerals, and minerals may be metallic or they may be non-metallic minerals. If by mistake I've written metallic rocks or non-metallic rocks, please correct it. It is metallic minerals. Rocks are made up of minerals which are metallic and non-metallic. Then we come to your the igneous. Now, igneous is formed by the cooling down of magma. Then we did the sedimentary rocks. They are formed by deposition, hardening, and cementing together of sediments of the particles brought by wind, ice, or water. Metamorphic, when they change because of excessive heat and pressure. So now, time to revise and ask some questions to you. Now, if you understood the chapter, you must do these questions on your own, but I'll revise it with you. Now, the first question, what is the difference between rock and a mineral? Now, in the first slide, I told you that rock is a solid mass, but it may also include loose material like sand and silt. Whereas mineral are the substances found in the rocks. They are non-living solid substances. Now, rocks are made up of one or more simpler minerals. Each mineral contains two or more substances called as the elements. So mineral is composed of element, right? And rock is composed of minerals. Is that clear to you? Then rocks do not have a definite chemical composition, whereas minerals have it. Minerals provide us with metal and chemicals. So that is clear now. So rock is a solid mass, and rocks are the solid mass, but they form the earth crust. They also contain loose material like sand and silt. Then minerals are substances which are found in the rocks. They are non-living solid substances. Rock is composed of one or more minerals. Each mineral contains one or more substances called the elements. Rocks do not have a chemical composition. Minerals have a definite chemical composition. Minerals provide us with metals and chemicals. Now, question number 2, define ore. Now, ore is a rock in which particular mineral is found, right? Now, question number 3, name two types of minerals and differentiate between them. They are metallic minerals, non-metallic minerals. See, because the rocks are composed of these, we also call them as the metallic rocks, right? So there are two type of rocks, the metallic rocks and the non-metallic rocks. Now, the metallic rocks are metallic in form. These are found in the igneous and the metamorphic rocks. Example, iron, gold, silver, and copper. And non-metallic rocks they have minerals which are not metallic in form. These minerals are found in the sedimentary rocks. Example, clay, sulfur, coal, petroleum, and salt. Now, name the three types of rocks: igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic rocks. Question number 5, where does the word igneous come from? Igneous comes from a Latin word ignis, which means fire. How are igneous rocks formed? Igneous rocks, also known as primary rocks, they are formed when molten magma solidifies inside the earth crust or on the earth surface. Name two types of igneous rocks and differentiate between them. Now, two types of igneous rocks are intrusive igneous rocks and extrusive igneous rocks. Now, what is the difference? See, extrusive, as the name says, exterior, bahar. When the molten magma lava comes rapidly on the Earth's surface, it cools down rapidly on the crust and it forms the extrusive igneous rocks. Now, since the magma cools down rapidly, the rocks so formed have no grains or very fine grains. Intrusive, when the molten magma cools down deep inside the Earth's crust, it forms intrusive igneous rocks. Now, since the magma cools down slowly, the rocks so formed have large grains. Question number 8, give two examples of igneous rocks, intrusive rocks, and extrusive rocks. So, example of igneous rock is basalt and granite. Intrusive ka, you can learn both from the G, that is granite and gabbro, and of your extrusive is rhyolite and basalt. Now, why are igneous rocks known as the primary rocks? Now, they are known as the primary rocks as other type of rocks are formed from this. So this is question number 9 that we are doing, right? Now, because they are called as primary rocks, as other type of rocks are formed from these rocks. Now, where does the word sedimentary comes from? So let's just highlight this. Okay, question number 10, where does the word sedimentary come from? Sedimentary word comes from a Latin word sedimentare, which means to settle down. Now, question number 11, how are sedimentary rocks formed? Now, they are formed from the sediments, that is the pieces of the rocks which break down into smaller fragments. Then they are carried away by wind, water, ice. They get deposited on the sea or land. These sediments are compressed, hardened, cemented together to form layers of rock called as sedimentary rocks. Which rock contains the fossils of animals and plants? It cannot be igneous because igneous does not contain neither the metamorphic, so it is the sedimentary rocks because they are formed with the sediments. So these fossils of animal and plants get trapped in them. Now, question number 13. Dash rock constitutes 70% of the total rock in the world, that is sedimentary rocks. What is the other name for sedimentary rock? And that is your stratified. Stratified means the layering of the rocks. So the other name is stratified rocks. Give two examples of sedimentary rocks: sandstone and limestone. Now, question number 16. How are metamorphic rocks formed? So, how metamorphic rock form? Excessive heat and pressure inside the earth changes certain igneous and sedimentary rocks in their form and feature. Now, you might have a question here that does all the igneous and sedimentary rocks change into metamorphic? No. That is why I have written this word certain. Certain means that only some of the igneous and sedimentary rocks change in their form and feature because of excessive heat and pressure. These rocks are known as metamorphic. Now, the 17th question is, give examples of the metamorphic rocks: marble, slate, and genesis. Now, just a little bit I wanted to add here so that we have done it in our previous slides, but just to give you a slight insight, limestone changes into marble, shale changes into slate, and granite changes into genesis, right? This is how the limestone is a sedimentary rock. It changes into marble. Shale is also a sedimentary rock. It changes into slate. Granite is an igneous rock which changes into genesis, which is a metamorphic rock. So this is what I have for you in this video, but I'm leaving you with few questions. I will not be answering them because they are in my slides. Why don't you try it yourself? You have to name the type of rock. Which is granite? Which type of rock is granite? Which type of rock is basalt? Which type of rock is sandstone? Which type of rock is shale? Which type of rock is genesis? Which type of rock is limestone, marble, and dolerite? I will not give you the answers. If you will go back to my slides, you will find the answers. So this is all I have for you in part 2. With this, I finish your chapter 2, which is inside the earth crust. And I've done both the topics. I've done mantle, crust, and core. We've done the various minerals, rocks. We've done the various materials of the earth crust: rocks, minerals, and ores. We've done igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic rocks. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this is beneficial for you. So see you again with a new video.